Alright, so here are the results for each weapon side by side. I have them as bar charts and not a line graph, because I think it'd be slightly more intuitive this way. But basically, the blue bar is for the 5 meters, and then the red is the additional time that it took for 30 meters, which was relatively inconsequential for both weapons. Actually, the time at 30 meters was actually shorter in several instances, but we'll get to that in a minute. First off, I do want to kind of draw your attention to the fact that you may have noticed I left the spin-up time included in the minigun time frame. So not only does minigun just generally do better, but that's including the full second of spin-up time, which, if you actually know how to use minigun well, then you'll know to spin up your barrels before going into a fight, so it's kind of like, it's relatively negligible. The difference would be much larger if we weren't counting the spin-up time. So all of these target mechs have the same HP, with the exception of the high HP one, obviously. The only difference between the first one and the last three are, the mods that they have equipped, but their base HP is the same across the board. So it kind of helps you get an idea of how the weapon behaves against each type of mod. Worth mentioning that each of the mechs have a slightly different hitbox though, so especially for something like minigun, it will do slightly better or slightly worse against some of these mechs. There is small variation in the results. This is due to the fact that both of the weapons have a spread mechanic, and projectile spread is very random, so it can give sort of mixed results. Like I said earlier, the times at longer distances were shorter in a couple cases. Some of that's due to just like frame timing on my part when I'm editing the video, but it's especially prevalent in the case of like minigun at longer ranges. The random spread, it can make it, you either get lucky and you hit your shots at long distance or you don't. So these of course are not like super exact numbers. But regardless, I can confidently say, minigun's performing better on average against every enemy across the board in both ranges. And you might say, well, Hellfire actually has a max range of 40 meters, so maybe minigun is falling off at longer range, and maybe you just, need to back up a little bit further. The answer to that is no, even if we include the full second of spin-up time from minigun. At 60 meters, minigun still does better than Hellfire does point blank. So minigun's already doing more damage, it has higher DPS, and it's more consistent while also being at longer range, which is honestly just sad to see. You already know that the devs clearly overvalued the burn mechanic of the Hellfire, which is like, okay, it's a sort of interesting mechanic, but it doesn't do a lot of damage, right? I mean, minigun also has, along with the spin-up time, it also has the turn penalty. So, minigun's got a lot of negatives going for it, but it still just has higher killing power, and that's what you're looking for when it comes to a large magazine, close range, heavy-duty weapon. So besides just for fun against bots, Hellfire doesn't really have a lot of practicality. This is kind of the only clip that I could manage to get against players, and you can see the damage is just so sad. I mean, granted, the weapon is sort of low level and I don't have the best implant for it, but anyone who owns a minigun would know. It just does way better. The one thing I will say is that these results actually weren't as far apart as I was expecting. You can see in the charts, the kill time was effectively the same when it came to hitting a sort of mid-HP target with no shield mod, which is like not the ideal kind of thing that you want a close-range sustained fire weapon to be specializing in. Not super useful, but the one thing that Hellfire does have going for it is that it is a single implant weapon. Minigun pretty much requires you to use all 3 weapon implants in order to do well, which I was using during the testing, of course, as well as all of the Hellfire implants. So maybe against a less optimized minigun build, maybe something without the recoil implant, it could be a better option for the short term, but I don't think it's ever going to be your ideal weapon of choice. I said it before and I'll say it again in case the devs are watching this. I think it would be great if Hellfire got a little bit of a buff at least. It doesn't need to be meta, of course, but I think everyone can agree that it doesn't even have a niche. Minigun's kind of just better at everything, and the burn damage is just really bad. The way I would suggest addressing this issue would be to, first off, add scaling to the burn damage so that it's not flat across all of the weapon ranks. Second off, reduce the damage of the flames by a bit, but then like quadruple the actual burn damage, where it has a lot of DOT potential, but it's also rather reliant on that DOT perk. In similar fashion to like Tetra Rifle, which I think was a fantastic design, and I know a lot of other people liked the concept of it. A weapon that has a really specific specialization to a point where it can be countered by certain things, but also it's very effective in its ideal environment. But anyway, yeah, the last thing I'll say before I go is that, like in my Hellfire review video, I think I ended up cutting around a lot of the things that I said during recording, and the final video ended up kind of making it look like I was comparing it to Revoker a bit too much, which obviously shouldn't happen. Revoker is the outlier, it should not be the standard. We don't want everything to be balanced according to Revoker, we want Revoker itself to be balanced, right? But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. Let me know what you guys think about Hellfire, whether you think it needs a buff, or if you think it's good the way that it is. Otherwise, yeah, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.